Welcome to White Space, DatacenterDynamics' weekly look at the news of the data center industry. This week, instead of Bill, we've got George, who's just back from our event in San Francisco.
Hi there.
George, tell us about it.
It was a great event, I would say that. No, truly. In the US, we went from having 9 events in the US in 2014 to having 3 events. And the move was about going to verticals because we were always linked to cities. So DCD would have an event in Atlanta and New York and San Francisco and Seattle and all sorts of different places. And we took a strategic change to start mining down into the verticals.
Right.
Yeah. So content was getting different.
Yes.
So the 3 big verticals for us were enterprise. So enterprise, heterogeneous, complicated data centers. Those guys are always saying, what do we care about Facebook? They got an easy data center. We don't want to hear about them. We've got difficult ones. So we put on an event in New York. I think Bill Boyle was there, and that was very well received, enabled us to get really deep into the content for that sector. And then we had San Francisco last week, which was titled DCD Internet.
Right.
Web scale.
These are the big guys.
The big guys.
Right.
Yeah. So we had the web scale event. And our aim is to draw a new audience. You've heard of stacking IT, I take it.
Of course.
So this is our open source data center play, and that was launched over there. And what we've been trying to do forever and an age is bring together everybody north of the rack, the IT people, the architects, the DevOps, and put them in a room with everybody south of the rack, our more traditional players, the facilities, the engineering, the data center operations people. And we managed to do it with that content.
Did they play nicely?
They played really nicely, and we started getting some very cool new conversations. We had lots of DevOps discussions, you know, this elusive DevOps discussion, and I'm always trying to find a link between the north and the south. And form factor is always a link, isn't it? What are these boxes? What's this hardware that's coming into the data center, and how's it going to change the data center? So we had Brian Cantrill, who is the CTO of Joint. He was talking about containers, and we got the conversation round to form factor. We've got an interview on that up on the website, how it's changing the sizing of the data centers, the requirements, how the age of virtualization was the first step, and to him that's gone, and now we're in a container world.
So these are software containers like Docker uses.
Yeah.
Where does form factor come in? Because isn't form factor normally like hardware?
Well, you're going to have to, well it is, but there has to be a translation, right? There has to be a translation from the system to the hardware it's running on and to the building. If not, everybody would continue to build data centers the same as they did 10 years ago. So there is always a knock-on effect.
Right.
So all he was talking about was taking the abstraction layer up to the operating system, and then using containers to deliver more and more services in a more cost-effective way. So another term I came across was SKUs, usually used in retail. And I was speaking with a guy, he was on a panel, called TJ Kniveton. He's the head of engineering at Salesforce. And he was talking about SKUs as unique items. So a SKU could be the server and the operating system together, and how he wants to have less SKUs, because the fewer SKUs you've got, the more efficient you can become.
Right. SKU traditionally means stock control unit. And so if you've got fewer of them, you have to keep less things on your shelves.
Absolutely, which means you can scale out a lot more quickly.
So the software-defined data center will actually, far from meaning you don't have to care about the hardware, it means you're going to have to decide what SKUs you're going to use.
Absolutely. And you have to work on consolidating them. Now, the issue is, I think, the development guys, they don't like this so much. They like to be able to build lots of different things that are exact for their applications. So there's a knock-on effect for having to train in your organization the development and operations people to start writing code that can reside on fewer SKUs. And I think there's a bit of tension within that, because then they lose their functionality maybe, or they lose their free hand that they've had for many years, but it's all, in the end, going towards the efficiency drive.
Yeah. And I guess a lot of toys as well. It's just like it's taking away toys from people.
Absolutely. People hate their toys being taken away, right?
Yeah. I heard there was a panel on water.
There was a panel on water. I unfortunately was not there. I was out getting a drink. Yeah, we were in California and there was a panel on water. And we've had a lot about that this week, haven't we?
We have. The power usage effectiveness metric had some water added to it in a proposal which has a long way to go before it becomes real in any way.
So has it been diluted?
Well, that could be an argument. Just out of interest, how do you pronounce PUE?
PUE.
PUE or?
PUE.
Right, well, not PUE, because the new formula which has been proposed includes the acronym WEE as well, water equivalent energy. You'll need to look at it and do the maths, people, but it looks to me like, in some ways, kind of false accounting. The top line of that equation is supposed to have energy that you've spent. The suggestion here is to add in some energy that you get for nothing. The effect of that means that free-cooled data centers suddenly have a much higher PUE or PUE than they otherwise would. They look less efficient, even though the actual energy that you pay for, if you just put in those aspects, they're still better. So it's effectively a move to make certain kinds of data centers and certain areas of the world where data centers have trouble using evaporative cooling by putting a higher value on the water they use to make them more competitive in this sort of marketing term that PUE is.
I mean, at the end of the day, the metrics debate has been raging since about 2005. PUE, out of its simplicity, took hold, and it's become the stand-up number for every marketing campaign in the world, hasn't it?
Yeah.
People don't like to get their hands dirty in the details. It all ends up with money at the end of the day. But the one discussion that seems to evaporate is the useful workload discussion that everybody's tried to tackle. I remember the Japan Data Center Council had tried to tackle it, and I've heard a few other kind of like ideas around how you get useful workload to efficiency, but that seems to have left for a while as everybody gets involved in cloud capacity debates.
Yes, we've got a measure that's talking about how efficiently you're providing the cycles in the computers, but how well they're used, people have no idea how to even measure it. It's because it's a value judgment.
I always present on the slide that I stole from, I think, Ian Bitlin and Dr. Summers from Leeds University about the Gangnam Style video and how much energy that consumed in a year for 1.7 billion downloads. And the back of the fag packet calculation, that cigarette packet for any viewers in the US, is that it's equivalent to 284 gigawatt hours, I think, or 312 gigawatt hours, which is 36 megawatts of diesel generators running for a year. And we say, what use was that video? Was it useful to put a smile on people's faces, to engage people with each other? What use was it? And then you compare that to, I don't know, cancer research and the power used by that. So I think that will end up being the debate in the future, where we put our power for the most useful work for humanity. But I think it's all too new at the moment.
We need to
really
progress
engage
as a species before we get there.
It's all too new. We're still in the first cycle.
Yes. What's been interesting you, Max?
Yeah. Well, I mean, a couple of things really quickly. GE is about to become a cloud provider. So next year they have this product called Predix software. It's basically analytics, drags information out of your industrial appliances, puts it all together, lets you do stuff with it. And now they've had it for a while, and everybody does, like platform as a service. So they decided, we've got some data centers, why don't we do that? So next year, they're going to start offering the Predix Cloud, which is going to be this industrial software as a service, security features, going to keep your data safe, and you can get it from GE. So yeah, very, very interesting, and we'll see if that sort of like becomes the new gold standard for industrial data, because that's growing as well.
Who were their target clients for that?
That's an interesting question. First and foremost, themselves. So they're going to use it internally, because GE is a huge, giant, tentacled monster, and they make everything from microwave ovens to jet engines. So they're going to use it themselves first, and then they're going to roll it out to other customers who maybe want to do things the same way.
So it's GE's version of G Cloud.
Yes, pretty much.
GE's IoT cloud.
Let's not overdo it with the abbreviations.
No, it's been a bad week for acronyms.
Yes.
Speaking of those small edge data centers, we did hear about the smallest one I've ever heard of, the data center in a suitcase that was created for the American military. Mm-hmm. It's a fairly rugged suitcase, and it has and it's not a huge data center, it's got like about 88 cores, 2.8 terabytes of solid state and up to 12 terabytes of hard disks, but it looks like a bit of military kit.
Wow, well, you don't want to misplace that if it's a whole data center, right? It's difficult to misplace bricks and mortar. You put guards on the front, but it's not even somebody's nicked my little disk drive with some important names on it. It's the whole thing. I wonder what they're going to put on it.
That's pretty much it. Okay, well, I mean, in brief, Amazon has launched its own MySQL compatible database, which is basically a slap in the face of Oracle. They're saying it's going to be cheaper, they're saying it's going to be faster, they're saying it is the best thing since sliced bread, and it's out there already in the US and Europe. So interesting to see how that develops.
If you put your data and your apps into this database, can you ever get them back?
Well, I mean, you wouldn't want to, right?
Because Amazon's so good.
Of course.
So thanks for joining us for more of the same. Join us again next week.
Thanks a lot. Thanks, gents.
Thank you.